Hello and welcome back to the True Crime Comedy Podcast, Murders Podcast. I am your host, Sidney Smith, and I am here by myself again. And you know what? It's kind of fun. I had a good time with it last week. Shout out to everybody who messaged me or emailed me, let me know what they thought about last week's solo. I thank you guys. I thank you guys for listening. For those of you who did not, if you're listening this week, I will take that as you approve. So thank you guys for jumping back in here with me again this week. I've switched it up a little bit because it's been a crazy week. It's been a crazy few weeks, but it's been a crazy week. So this week, I am actually recording in the morning. So I am sitting here in my office / studio recording. Got a cup of coffee in front of me. You know why? I'm not drinking Glenlivet because I'm not an alcoholic. All right. And it is 6:21 a.m. and I cannot be drinking liquor right now, no matter how badly I would like to. So just drinking some coffee with a little creamer in there. But we're going to knock this thing out this morning. We got a fun one lined up for you. But before we jump in, and I hate to say fun one because someone gets murdered, but, you know, that's why we listen to these things. This is why I do this thing, because we have fun with it. So we got a fun one lined up. But I want to thank you guys again for joining me on Murders Podcast. I do appreciate it. If you are new to the podcast, I'm sure you did not get here by accident. I would assume. I'm assuming. See, we use the word assume because I'm getting ready to say some things that you say, why would this motherfucker think that? Because I'm assuming that someone sent you this way because they enjoy the podcast. So thank you for checking us out. On this podcast, we talk about the real life murders committed by women. So we got a doozy of one lined up for you. I was blown away by this one. And I'm going to try to do it justice by giving you the details, but also by giving you my thoughts and my opinions as we go through it as well. So we'll see how well I pull that off today, but this is a real doozy we got for you. Before we get there, let me go ahead and ask you guys who've been listening for a while and who have not, or those newbies who are just joining us for the first or maybe the second week to do this, go ahead and drop us a nice review, or I would at least take some stars on Spotify or iHeartRadio or maybe Apple Podcasts. You know, hook a brother up, as I used to say back in the day. Hook a brother up. I used to hate that when people would say, hook a brother up. That would just drive me nuts. But yeah, hook a brother up. So thank you very much. Give us 5 stars. As I always like to say, we will be forever in your debt if we get those 5 stars from you. I don't know how I would repay you for that. So please do not come to me 10, 15 years later saying, hey, man, I gave you 5 stars. Time to pay up. I do not know how I would repay that debt. So that's why we will say, I will forever be in your debt. So yeah, jump on there and leave that for us. Also, we got some other things coming as well I'm going to get into here. The Patreon has not been what I wanted the Patreon to be for you guys since the inception of this podcast, but working on some things here on behind the scenes here, a podcast network, which I'll give you guys the details and the name of that, all in due time, but working on that right now, as well as some other things within the podcast network that we're going to do with the Patreon and come up with some new things and some new ideas and try to be a little bit more consistent with it. So for those of you who have already joined the Patreon for Murderous Podcast and who stayed true to being a Patreon member, I appreciate you. I thank you. Please continue to do that if you can. I know it's tough out there right now. This is not a good thing that a businessman should do. You never want to remind the people of what's out there in reality when you want them to continue to give you money. But I'm not a jerk. I'm not an asshole. I know that we need to do better with the Patreon. And I know gas is like $100 a gallon right now. So thank you guys for who's still supporting the show the way that you have with your purse, with your wallet, however you want to put it. So shout out to you. We will do better in terms of that. So let's move on a little bit here. How has your week been? How has your week been? My week has been, so busy. But it's a good kind of busy. I can't complain. How has your week been? I want you guys to tell me. I want this to kind of be more of a back and forth because, I'm here solo. So I would love for this to be more of a back and forth. And obviously, it can't be a back and forth with the immediate response from you. But I still want to know how you guys are doing, especially some of my more avid listeners out there. Shoot me something on murderouspodcast.com. Just drop me a little message. Even if it's, hey, Sid, fuck off. Just shoot me a little something. I'd love to know how you're doing, how your family's doing. I know we are all getting well past the COVID, and fingers crossed we don't have another variant that drops and shuts us down even 10%, because I think we're all getting back to the basics of living a regular life. I would love to see that keep going. So, but how was your week been? Would love to know about it. So again, murderspodcast.com, because I'm up here, I'm telling you about my shit and my week, and that's just selfish for me not to know about yours. But it's been a crazy one for me. Sitting down with my guy Sly, my DP, and we've been doing the editing on my latest film, Section 17. So that's been something keeping me in the lab, if you will, learning a lot from doing that with him. So I'm really enjoying that. It's a weird thing when you shoot a film at this stage. I'm not Spike Lee, I'm not Spielberg or George Lucas or Ron Howard, anyone of that sort yet. So it's kind of a weird thing when you're learning the process as you go. I write the scripts and everything, and I'm part of every detail of it. But you just don't know what it's going to look like until you get into the editing. And I know for a fact that in Hollywood or anywhere in this country where they shoot the bigger projects with the large budgets, they go back and they do reshoots and things like that. When you're shooting on this scale, you don't always have the option to go back. So we shot it at some good friends of mine. They own some restaurants here in the Arizona area, and they allowed us to use one of their spaces for a quite a long time. But it's a weird thing because there's, I'd love to go back and reshoot that. I would love to be able to, and you're like, no, I don't want to make that ask again. So that's where the magic happens, and we'll see how much magic can happen. And I'm probably boring you with this story at this point, but just to say, I've had fun shooting it. It took longer to shoot because we had some deaths in the family, and my actors had other things scheduled. But we finally got it done. We finally got it shot. And now we're in the editing booth, and now I'm like, all right, I can't wait to see what this looks like when it's done. And I hope it's good enough for me to do another premiere, because I had such a good time when I premiered my first film, Mother's Day, which you can find on YouTube, or you can go right to my comedic website, Sidney Smith Creative, CRE8TIV.com, and check that one out there. It's just a short film that was about 7 to 8 minutes long, and this one here I'm going to estimate will be about 25 minutes long. So increasing the size of the production as I go, but having fun with it. So been super, super dope experience so far, and been super busy with that. Hitting the stage tonight. So trying to just do everything, man. Just trying to keep everything moving. Got the hitting the stage tonight with Chris Porter at Stand Up Live downtown Phoenix. So if you are in the Phoenix area, come out and check out the show. Chris Porter is super, super, super funny. Super nice guy, which you guys wouldn't know because you're not in the green room hanging out. That's why I like to tell people when I'm working with a comic that's super nice and super funny, man. I just like to put it out there because it's easy for you to see funny. It's not always easy for you to see nice, depending on the comic. If he or she likes to come out and really associate with the audience. Some do, some don't. Some have a lot of things going on, especially the comics that come to the clubs here in Phoenix. These guys are guys and girls are on a different level. They have so many other projects going. Sometimes they just can't step out. So Chris Porter, super funny, super, super nice. Looking forward to working with him Thursday through Sunday. Again, if you're in the Valley, come out and check out a show or two. You can go to my website again, SidneySmithCreative.com, CRE8TIV.com. And if you come out and you check out the show, stop by. I always come out and shake hands and kiss babies afterwards, just because that's kind of my thing, until it's not, I guess. But it's been my thing for all these years. So stop by, say what's up. Let me know that you heard about the show on my podcast, on Murder's Podcast. We'd love to know if that's how you came out to see me, and let me know about that. So just staying busy with a ton of different things going. Still married, so I gotta put that work into hanging out with the wife. Had a good time with some friends. My friends Vanya and Gabe and Tawanda and Sean. When I had some breakfast and we went and did some shopping. I think one of the weird things about having couple friends, and in Arizona, and I don't know about anywhere else, because I do know about other places. Other places I've been, I'm not quite as concerned. So let me just say that in Arizona, I'm always very careful about the couple friends. Like they got to go through, like they don't even know it, but they got to pass through this this test of mine that I have going on whenever we meet people and they want to hang out, because there are so many swingers in this state. There's so many swingers in this area. And the last thing I want is to be surprised by that shit right there. So, you know, Tamara and I are usually very cautious about the friends we make anyway. I'm even more cautious. I've never even had, you guys are the first ones I'm ever saying this to. I've even said this to my wife. Um, yeah, and we've been together for coming up on, well, hell, we've been together now for 9 years total now. But I am always super careful. So it's nice to have some couple friends, and we have a few sets that we hang out with. We have a set that we're going to go up to Flagstaff and hang out for the 4th of July weekend with, and that type of thing. And it's a comfortable thing because I just want to be careful. Who wants to be sitting at breakfast and just someone's hand touches your knee and you realize it's not your wife? And you just look across the table or look to your left and your right, and someone else is smiling at you. And I know it may be a crazy, crazy fear that I have. And I'm sure I got friends here who listen to the podcast who would tell me I'm crazy. I got friends who listen who are married. I don't even know. I don't want to mention anyone's names. But if you guys ever have the same thoughts I do about that, please let me know, because it is insane. Look, coming up as a comic, I know for a fact in this area that there are comics who make their side hustle for years by going to different cities and sleeping with the wives while the men cuckold, and which is a new term I learned like within the last 18 months or so, two years or so. I didn't know that that's what this was years ago when I was hearing about these comics, driving to these areas and having sex with these wives for money while the husbands watched, sitting in the room and watched, or while the husband sat downstairs and watched on their iPad through a camera, all these different things. And when I was younger and single and a lot more out there, so they were, hey, Sid, you gotta come on, and I would always say no. Now I'm not gonna say I said no because I was raised in the church. I don't want to make that assumption. Pardon me while I take a sip of my Pete's coffee. All right. I'm not going to say that I said no because I was raised in the church, which I was, because I was a born again Christian when I was a young man, which I was. I don't want to say because I had this superiority of my morals that above and beyond anyone else's. It wasn't anything like that. It was because I remember when I was a kid, I was a teenager, and I had a buddy. And I'll say his first name only, Gary. And Gary went on this camping trip, and he came back. Now Gary was, let me break the mood, or set the mood rather. We're 15, 16 years old. I had 14 when I first meet Gary. I think Gary at the time might have been 19 when I first met him. So Gary was already a few years ahead of us. Graduated from high school, had a job, making good money, bought a house early on, all these types of things. And so if you remember when you're in high school, with your buddy that you meet who's already graduated and whatnot, if he'll let you hang around, you'll hang around because this is the guy who's going to have all the older girls, have the parties. I was lucky enough to be a kid because I was a good kid. I didn't have a curfew, so I could just chill wherever I wanted to. And if I wanted to hang out at Gary's whenever, I would just hang out at Gary's. And I remember Gary going on this camping trip, and he comes back, and Gary would always have the best stories because Gary was actually, legally speaking, an adult and doing things the rest of us couldn't do, at least stuff that I couldn't do without my mother smacking me on the back of the neck. But he came back with this story from this camping trip, and he's in the backseat of this car. I'm going to try to tell it to you, and just so you guys know, I'm trying to. A lot of this stuff I don't write down, other than the actual murder. I write some notes down as far as what I'm going to banter with myself about or with you guys about. But so I'm trying to remember this the best I can as I go. But Gary is sitting in the back seat of this car, and he feels this hand touching him from the front, and it's the girlfriend. He's in his car with this guy and his girlfriend, and it's Gary, and she's touching his leg. And they get to the campsite, and one thing goes from one to the other, and Gary starts having sex with this girl or making out with this girl. The offer of sex happens, and Gary says no. And this is only a couple of minutes into the action, if you will. And so he's telling the story. And of course, as a 14, 15-year-old boy, I had to step in with my question. Yo, why did you say no? He said, I said no. He said, because if I'm fucking her, what is he doing? That story has never left me. Never left me. Now, again, I don't know if I'm crazy for the fact that that story has never left me, and that is what has guided my principle when I was younger on whether or not I was going to get involved in a threesome with a married man and his wife. But it has. And I would like to think that it's kept me from, I don't know, maybe being thrown in the trunk and pulled out and ass fucked every other week. I don't know. but but and I don't know if it's a rational thing to keep this in the back of my mind, but it is. It's why I never did. It's why I never got involved with making a little extra money on the side. Which, who gives a fuck about the little extra money on the side? You guys are actually just doing it because you want to fuck these men's wives. Let's call it like it is. And it's also been my guiding principle when it comes to who and who my wife are not going to be friends with in terms of couples, and how long it's going to take before we're comfortable even having breakfast with you, let alone going shopping with you or taking a vacation with you. So I had a great time over the weekend. I'm glad I was able to do it with some friends, with some married folks that I am pretty 99, because nothing's ever absolute. But 99.9%, I feel comfortable saying that they don't want to fuck me or my wife. And it was good. It's good to have a few of those friends hanging around that you can hang out with from time to time. Because to be honest with you, my wife and I are very quiet people. We tend to be by ourselves quite a bit. Whether we're working or not working, we enjoy being at home. We enjoy our home. We enjoy that it's peaceful and it's quiet. We have yet to have any children or anything like that. So we enjoy that. But when we want to get out, we do like to get out with good people. It's good to know that we've been able to do that. I want to jump into this murder. But before I do, I want to remind you guys here in the Valley, Thursday through Sunday, starting tonight, Stand Up Live with Chris Porter. Get your tickets, SydneySmithCreative.com, and come on out. I would love to see you guys. Also, I have a new podcast. I shouldn't say new. I have another podcast that's being renewed here, along with me starting the podcast network as well. So now that's debatable. If you were a fan of that before, that you've been able to still be a fan as far as Facebook Live goes. We do that every week. We try to anyway with myself, Dion, and Warren B. Hall, but we're all three pretty successful, and I would like to say pretty successful comedians, each one of us. So we can get busy with our schedules and other things we're doing. So we try to put that out each and every week on Mondays, but that will be coming back as a podcast and will be a part of my podcast network as well. So got a lot of things buzzing, got a lot of things going. Again, I want to thank you guys for your support. And again, how has your week been? I do want to know. I'm not BSing. If you don't want to tell me, then you don't want to tell me. But if you do, you do. And I think that's an important thing, that we listen to one another, because some of us don't have anyone to share these things with. Sometimes we may think we have someone and no one, and then we feel like no one's listening. So how has your week been? Let me know. Again, go to murderouspodcast.com. Drop me a message there. And can't say that I will try to respond in a timely fashion. That is what I will say. But you will at least be heard for sure. So how has your week been? Let me know. And, I will try to take it from there. But again, thank you guys for listening. If you've listened for the first 20 minutes, you are a real fan of mine and this podcast. So thank you guys. Shout out to you. And don't forget, figure out what your test is going to be. Make sure that couple friend is not trying to sleep with you. Make sure they're not trying to sleep with you. Okay? All right. On this week's episode, we look at the seriously disturbed and deadly murderess, Karla Homolka. This one kind of disturbed me, reading this one and pulling this one together, actually. I'm going to tell you the truth. Karla Leanne Homolka, also known as Karla Leanne Till, and Leanne Bordelaise, was born May 4th, 1970, in Port Credit, Ontario, Canada. She attracted worldwide media attention when she was convicted of manslaughter following a plea bargain in 1991 and 1992 of the rape murders of two Ontario teenage girls, Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French, as well as the rape and death of her sister Tammy. Karla Leanne Homolka, also known as Karla Leanne Till and Leanne Bordelaise, was born on May 4th. Karla was the eldest of Carol and Dorothy Homolka's three daughters. Her sisters were Lori and Tammy. The family lived in St. Catharines, Ontario. Karla Homolka began working part-time at a pet shop while attending Sir Winston Churchill Secondary School. After graduation in 1988, she was hired by Thorold Veterinary Clinic to work as a veterinary assistant. She later took a similar job at the Martindale Animal Clinic, from which she stole drugs that were to be used in her crimes. Karla met Paul Bernardo at a Scarborough restaurant on October 17, 1987, while they were both attending a convention in Toronto. She was 17 years old. He was 23. See, right there. Right there, I can always see there's getting ready to be an issue, because a lot of times, as you guys, if you've been listening to the stories we've been putting out, or just been a fan of true crime, period, every time there's that large difference in age between she and he, I can always see there's going to be a problem. And why wouldn't there be? Why would a 23-year-old man want to date a 17-year-old girl? So she was 17 years old. He was 23. Bernardo proposed to Homolka on December 24th. So I couldn't find a difference in the years, so I can only assume that this is October to December. So we are looking at 2 months and 7 days between meeting and between proposing to this child. The age of majority in Ontario is 18, and at the time, the age of consent in Canada was 14. Now, here's a little, as Jamie would have said before, a little fun fact. The age of majority refers to the age at which an individual will be legally considered an adult. Now, I've never heard that phrase used that way, so I actually had to look that up. I'm going to be completely honest with you. So, the age of majority in Ontario is 18. So, the age of majority, again, refers to the age at which an individual will be legally considered an adult, much the same as in the U.S., minus, drinking alcohol and that type of thing. But at the time, the age of consent in Canada was 14. So we're looking at two different things here, as far as being in Ontario, the city, and the rules of law in Canada, the country. So Tammy Homolka was one of their victims. And by 1990, Bernardo was spending large amounts of time with the Homolka family, who liked him. He was engaged to the eldest daughter and flirted constantly with the youngest one. So let's go back here one more time. 87. We're 3 years in now. We're to the 90s. She's got to be 20 now. And now we're looking at him flirting with her younger sister after 3 years in, dealing with his family. So Bernardo was spending large amounts of time with the Homolka family, who liked him. He was engaged to the eldest daughter and flirted constantly with the youngest one. He had not told them that he had lost his job as an accountant, and instead was smuggling cigarettes across the nearby U.S.-Canadian border. He had become obsessed with Tammy Homolka, peeping into her window and entering her room to masturbate while she slept. Karla Homolka helped him by breaking the blinds in her sister's window to allow Bernardo access. In July, Bernardo took Tammy across the border to get beer for a party. While there, Bernardo later told his fiancée they got drunk and began making out, quote unquote. According to Bernardo's testimony at his trial, on July 24, 1990, Karla Homolka laced spaghetti sauce with crushed Valium she had stolen from her employer. Now, don't forget, we talked about this in the very beginning, that she was working at that clinic and she was stealing drugs from there. Valium she had stolen from her employer, Martindale Cannibal Clinic. She served dinner to her sister, who soon lost consciousness. Bernardo began to rape Tammy while Karla watched. Now, I have a baby sister and I have two younger brothers, so I think I can speak and have a strong opinion on this. I couldn't imagine someone harming any of the three and me just sitting back watching, let alone me being someone who assisted in them being harmed, whether it be some type of abuse, sexually or physically. So again, researching this one kind of put me back on my heels a little bit, because I don't know how anyone can harm their siblings. We grew up pretty close. And from everything that I read, these three girls did as well. I didn't find anything that said that there was any issues between the three of them. So I'm just, again, I was speechless when I was going through the story originally, and I'm a little, again, set back even now. So, again, when her sister lost consciousness, Bernardo began to rape Tammy while Karla watched. Over the summer, he supplied Tammy and her friends with gifts, food and sodas that had a quote-unquote, a film and a few white flecks on top. 6 months before their 1991 wedding, Karla Homolka stole the anesthetic agent halothane from the clinic. On December 23rd, 1990, Homolka and Bernardo administered sleeping pills to the 15-year-old in a rum and eggnog cocktail. After Tammy was unconscious, Homolka and Bernardo undressed her, and Karla applied a halothane soaked cloth to her sister's nose and mouth. Karla Homolka wanted to give, and this is again quote, wanted to give Tammy's virginity to Bernardo for Christmas. The insanity of these people. See, we talked last week. I believe we talked about this, or I spoke about this last week, or maybe we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. But I know I said it to you guys. I know I said it to you. This is another example of God help the other two people who ended up with these two assholes, these two psychos. Let me read this text one more time. Quote unquote. Give Tammy's virginity to Bernardo for Christmas. Who thinks like this? What woman out there could think like this? That this would be a Christmas gift. My sister's virginity to you, my man. Who thinks like this? And she wanted to give her virginity to Bernardo, according to Homolka. Bernardo was disappointed by not having been Karla's first sex partner. With Tammy's parents sleeping upstairs, with Tammy's parents sleeping upstairs, the pair videotaped themselves as they raped her in the basement. They raped her. Tammy began to vomit. The pair tried to revive her, then called 911, but not before they hid evidence, dressed Tammy, and moved her into her basement bedroom. A few hours later, Tammy Homolka was pronounced dead at St. Catherine's General Hospital without having regained consciousness. Despite the pair's behavior, vacuuming and washing laundry in the middle of the night, and despite the presence of a chemical burn on Tammy's face, Niagara Regional Coroner and the Homolka family accepted the pair's version of the events. The official cause of Tammy Homolka's death was accidental, choking on her vomit after consumption of alcohol. Then these two psychos subsequently videotaped themselves with Karla wearing Tammy's clothing and pretending to be her. They also moved out of the Homolka house to a rented Port Dalhousie bungalow to let her parents cope with their grief. Man, if y'all don't stop it, if y'all do not stop it. First of all, let's briefly talk about these squirrels and rabbits that are running around because they got the brains of small animals that you would think the police. And I'm talking about the police department along with the parents. There's chemical burns on the girl's face. Where do you think those came from? Vodka? We've all had a bad night of drinking and have thrown up. Some of you have had it worse than most of us and been laying in your own vomit. Where do chemical burns come from? And how is vacuuming and washing laundry, how does that not set off alarms like, whoa, these two? Unfortunately, for a lot of these crimes, and we got a little ways to go on this one, but for a lot of these crimes, not just with these two horrible people, but with you see the missteps that the police departments make often that allow these things to continue to happen. And we got more here. But again, I know I keep saying it, but when I was reading through, I was just blown away by a lot of the facts that are here. And you guys hopefully are equally blown away and are going to be even more incensed as I was as we go on with the rest of this. All right. Now, unfortunately, their murderous escapades, if you will, don't stop there. Because the early morning on June 15th of 1991, Bernardo took a detour from Burlington halfway between Toronto and St. Catharines to steal license plates. He found Leslie Mahaffey. The 14-year-old had missed her curfew after attending a funeral, was locked out of her house, and had been unable to find anyone with whom she could stay overnight. It was then that Bernardo left his car and eyed up with his victim. So, if this was more, and maybe we'll get to that point with the next podcast because we're going to create a new one where we dig more into different details of the victims as well. Because often with these stories, I'm so curious about other aspects of the story. And I don't always want to bring them to this particular table because I'm not quite sure that's what you all signed up for. But it doesn't stop me from being curious. So I need to do a little soul searching, I guess, if you will, and find out exactly what I'm up for on the next podcast. Because I am curious. And to some of you, you may say, why are you hanging on this little detail? Why is this such a thing for you? Because I'm curious of why a 14-year-old girl who missed her curfew after attending a funeral. See, first of all, those two things don't even make sense to me. How do you miss a curfew after? Look, I was a 14-year-old, and I told you guys earlier I didn't have a curfew because I was a good kid. So it was really no curfew to miss. But if she has one, I would assume because her parents want to know her whereabouts and they want her home at a certain time. And I don't know where she would be going after a funeral. I don't know how she would miss the curfew and no one knew anything about it. And the other thing is, I don't know how come she couldn't get in to her house so that she would be outside. I mean, it's as if the way I'm led with this is as if she's out there just searching for a place to stay. And I don't understand that. I don't. And I don't want to just assume things about people. Because the note I put next to this short paragraph I've already written was that kids need to be careful and taught about predators. But then, before I even got a chance to read that statement, this just kind of re-entered my brain. Did she have the kind of parents that would have taught her about that? Because from what I'm reading, they seem like the type of people that would just lock her out the house and she wouldn't be able to get in to the point where she would have to find some place to stay overnight. Now, some people, because the other side of my brain, you don't just want to persecute someone, says that maybe the parents were out of town or so. But then that wouldn't match what was said. She missed curfew. She was locked out. So there's got to be a certain part to this day of her parents who've got to just say, one, We didn't do a good enough job of teaching her how to protect herself. And two, maybe we should have let her in the fucking house. So Bernardo approached her and told her he was looking to break into a neighbor's house. Unfazed, she asked if he had any cigarettes. Another problem, but, As Bernardo led her to his car, he blindfolded her, forced her into the vehicle, and drove her to Port Dalhousie, where he informed Homolka that they had a playmate. Bernardo and Homolka subsequently videotaped themselves torturing and sexually abusing Mahaffey, all while listening to Bob Marley and David Bowie. At one point, Bernardo said, "You're doing a good job, Leslie. A damn good job." Then he added, quote, "The next 2 hours are going to determine what I do to you. Right now, you're scoring perfect," unquote. On another segment of tape played at Bernardo's trial, the assault escalated. Mahaffey cried out in pain and begged Bernardo to stop. In the Crown description of the scene, he was sodomizing her while her hands were bound with twine. A 14-year-old girl, he's doing this too. Later, Mahaffey told Bernardo that her blindfold seemed to be slipping, an ominous development as it signaled the possibility that she might be able to identify both her tormentors if permitted to live. The following day, Bernardo claimed Homolka fed her a lethal dose of Halcyon. Homolka claimed that instead Bernardo strangled her. The pair put her body in their basement. The following day, the Homolka family had dinner at the house. After the Homolkas and their remaining daughter, Lori, had left, Bernardo and Homolka decided the best way to dispose of the evidence would be to dismember Leslie Mahaffey and encase each piece in cement. Bernardo bought a dozen bags of cement at a hardware store the following day. He kept the receipts, which could prove damaging at his trial. Bernardo used his grandfather's circular saw to cut the body. Bernardo and Homolka then made numerous trips to dump the cement blocks in Lake Gibson, which was 11 miles south of Port Dalhousie, so 11 miles from their home. At least one of the blocks weighed 200 pounds and proved beyond the pair's patience or abilities to sink. It rested near the shore, where a father-son on a fishing expedition discovered it on June 29, 1991. Leslie Mahaffey's orthodontic appliance proved instrumental in identifying her. You see what we're dealing with here. And again, let's go back to where we kind of started a little bit and talk about, again, how far they've gotten because of those police officers not being able to do a proper job when investigating the death. The murder, the obvious murder of the younger sister of Homolka. It's just sometimes these stories are beyond anything that I could even fathom. And I've been on this planet for a while, and there's not a lot that bothers me. I think for most of us, there's not a lot. I mean, once you've been around for a while and you've seen a lot, I think there isn't much that phases you. But the torture, the rape, the murder of young girls is always one that will pull at my heartstrings a little bit. Maybe even a lot of bit, depending on how much detail it's given. So they seemed like they took a little bit of a break from that torture and murder to the next, because he came upon Leslie Mahaffey June 15th of 1991. It was a little while, April 16th of 1992, before they discovered who their next victim would be. And on that afternoon, Bernardo and Homolka were driving through St. Catharines to look for potential victims. Keep in mind that you are hearing some of the same areas. At what point do we recognize that there is a serial killer, serial rapist, serial um, victimizer in the area? So Bernardo and Homolka were driving through St. Catharines to look for potential victims. It was after school hours on the day before Good Friday. Students were still going home, but by and large, the streets were empty. As they passed Holy Cross Secondary School, they spotted Kristen French, a 15-year-old student, walking briskly to her nearby home. The couple pulled up into the parking lot of a nearby Grace Lutheran Church, and Homolka got out of the car, map in hand, pretending to need assistance. As French looked at the map, Bernardo attacked from behind, brandishing a knife and forcing her into the front seat of their car. From her back seat, Homolka controlled the girl by pulling down her hair. French took the same route home every day, taking about 15 minutes to get home in order to attend to her dog's needs. Soon after she should have arrived, her parents became convinced that she had met with foul play and notified police. Within 24 hours, Niagara Regional Police, the NRP, had assembled a team and searched the area along her route and found several witnesses who had seen the abduction from different locations, thus giving police a fairly clear picture. Now, again, this is why I'm trying to think ahead about what the next podcast will be, and if it will be a true crime, how much more detail will we get into some of the stories that we decide to tell. Because again, if the information is there, I would love to have some time to find it and say, what the fuck were these several witnesses doing who saw the abduction happen? What were you doing? Because I got to tell you, if I saw a guy trying to snatch a young girl off the street with any type of weapon, I have no choice but to try to do something to assist her. Not only do I have no choice but to do that, I'm going to call the police. This will be heard about well before the parents call. Well before. So they found several witnesses who had seen the abduction from different locations, thus giving police a fairly clear picture. In addition, one of Kristen's shoes recovered from the parking lot underscored the seriousness of the abduction. Over the 3 days of Easter weekend, Bernardo and Homolka videotaped themselves as they tortured and again raped and sodomized, this time Kristen French, forcing her to drink large amounts of alcohol and to behave submissively to Bernardo. What a coward. At Bernardo's trial, Crown Prosecutor Ray Houlihan said that Bernardo always intended to kill her because she was never blindfolded and was capable of identifying her captors. While Bernardo was out buying pizza on April 18th, he was spotted by Carrie Patrick, whom he had stalked the previous month. Her report to the NRP was mishandled by police. No kidding. As noted by Judge Archie Campbell in his 1995 inquiry into the police investigation of Bernardo's crimes, thus negating any chance of Kristen French's being discovered at the Bernardo house. So did you guys catch that? Did you guys catch that? He was spotted by another girl that he had tried to stalk. NRP was called, but they mishandled it so bad that they never had a chance to save Kristen French's life. The following day, the couple murdered French. The following day, after he was spotted by Carrie, Bernardo was spotted by Carrie. Obviously, that had to spook these two. And again, not to state the obvious again, had you handled it correctly, you could have saved this girl's life. Instead, the following day, the couple murdered French before going to Homolka's for Easter dinner. Not only is this couple able to keep a girl in the basement while the family comes over for dinner, they're able to murder a young lady and then go to Easter dinner. They're even able to murder the sister of Homolka and then move out to leave their parents to deal with their grief. They together, again, to not to repeat myself too many times here, God help the other two people that would have ended up with these two. Homolka testified at her trial that Bernardo had strangled French for exactly 7 minutes while she watched. Bernardo said Homolka beat her with a rubber mallet because she had tried to escape, and that French ended up being strangled on a noose tied around her neck, secured to a hope chest. Immediately thereafter, Homolka went to fix her hair. French's nude body was found in a ditch on April 30th, 1992 in Burlington, approximately 45 minutes from St. Catharines, and a short distance from the cemetery where Leslie Mahaffey is buried. She had been washed and her hair had been cut off. It was originally thought that the hair was removed as a trophy, but Homolka testified that the hair had been cut to impede identification. On December 27th, 1992, Bernardo severely beat Homolka with a flashlight on the limbs, head, and face, claiming that she had been in an automobile accident. The severely bruised Homolka returned to work on January 4th, 1993. Her skeptical co-workers called Homolka's parents, who assumed they were rescuing her the following day by physically removing her from the house. Homolka went back in, frantically searching for something. Her parents took her to St. Catharines General Hospital, where her injuries were documented, and she gave a statement to the NRP claiming she had been a battered spouse and filed charges against Bernardo. He was arrested but later released. Homolka moved in with relatives in Brampton. Now, don't forget that one little piece. When her parents came to remove her from the home, thinking that they were saving her, she ran back inside. What do you think she was looking for? What do you think she was looking for when she went back inside that home? 26 months after the sample had been submitted, Toronto police were informed that Bernardo's DNA matched that of the Scarborough rapist and immediately placed him under 24-hour surveillance. Now, I'm going to take a quick break here just to say this. While this is a duo of rapists and murderers, she and he, I love the balance that we're able to get with this story, showing her background, showing what she was doing at the same time that he was doing what he was doing. I just really enjoy that aspect of this all the way through until we get to the end. So I kind of hope that you enjoy it as well. It's not something where we're leaning heavy to one side or the other, because I, in my mind, believe that they both played an equal role at minimum. At minimum. Though I am freely able to be talked into saying that she probably played a bigger role in all of this. Metro Toronto Sexual Assault Squad investigators interviewed Homolka in early February of 1993. Despite telling her their suspicions about Bernardo, Homolka concentrated on his abuse of her. Later that night, she told her aunt and uncle that her husband was the Scarborough rapist, that they were involved in the rapes and murders of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French, and that the rapes were recorded on videotape. The NRP, meanwhile, reopened an investigation into Tammy Homolka's death. On February 11th, 1993, Homolka met with Niagara Falls lawyer George Walker, who sought full immunity from St. Catharines Crown attorney Ray Houlihan in exchange for her cooperation. Homolka was placed under 24-hour surveillance. So here we have her finally coming forward saying that they were involved, that they committed these crimes. And now her lawyer, George Walker, is trying to swing the pendulum back in her direction to get her full immunity. The couple's name change was approved on February 13th, 1993. The next day, George Walker met with Murray Siegel, director of the Crown Criminal Law Office. Walker told Siegel of videotapes of the rapes, and Siegel advised Walker that considering Homolka's involvement in the crimes, full immunity was not a possibility. Like, get the fuck out of here. She's on tape, get the fuck out of here. There's no way I'm giving you full immunity. No way. Metro Sexual Assault Squad and Green Ribbon Task Force detectives arrested Bernardo on numerous charges on February 17, 1993, and obtained search warrants because Bernardo's link to the murders was weak. However, the warrant contained limitations. Get this right here. No evidence that was not expected and documented in the warrant was permitted to be removed from the premises. All videotapes the police found had to be viewed in the house. Damage to the house had to be kept to a minimum. Police could not tear down walls looking for the videotapes. The search of the house, including updated warrants, lasted 71 days, and only the tape found by the police had a short segment depicting Homolka performing oral sex on quote-unquote Jane Doe. On the 5th of May in 1993, Walker was informed that the government was offering Homolka a 12-year sentence plea bargain that she had 1 week to accept. If she declined, the government would charge her with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, and other crimes. Walker accepted the offer and Homolka later agreed to it. On May 14, 1993, the plea agreement between Homolka and the Crown was finalized as she began giving her statements to police investigators. Do you guys see what has happened here? Do you see where we started? Do you see the information that I have spoke to you about, that you've sat and listened to, and see where we've gotten from that picture to this picture? If your mind is not blown away, then start the podcast over. Because they have just given this woman a 12-year sentence plea bargain. Now, citing the need to protect Bernardo's right to a fair trial, a publication ban was imposed on Homolka's preliminary inquiry. The Crown had applied for the ban imposed on the 5th of July by Mr. Justice Francis Kovacs of the Ontario Court. That's their general division there. Homolka, through her lawyers, supported the ban, whereas Bernardo's lawyers argue he would be prejudiced by the ban since Homolka previously had been portrayed as his victim. 4 media outlets and 1 author also opposed the application. Some lawyers argued that rumors could be doing more damage to the future trial process than the publication of the actual evidence. Now, I don't know where I fall on this one. It's easy for me to say on this part of the story, the fuck is going on here? But I can kind of, after going back over and through this material a few times, see where the justice, what the justice was thinking, Mr. Justice Francis Kovacs, by putting the publication ban in. But I can see the other side too. I can see where you would think that one would find some type of prejudice against him if you did not keep everything silent. But I can see the other side as well. But they make a great point here going forward. Public access to the internet effectively nullified the court's order. However, as did proximity to the American border. Since a publication ban by an Ontario court cannot apply in New York, Michigan, or anywhere else outside of Ontario, American journalists cited the First Amendment in editorials and published details of Homolka's testimony, which were widely distributed by many internet sources, primarily on this news group that they had there. I want to say alt.fan.karla-homolka net news group. Information and rumors spread across a myriad of electronic networks available to anyone with a computer and a modem in Canada. So you know, again, I can see it, but great point here that they're making. The internet. What are you going to do about that? The internet goes around the world. So, I mean, maybe the justice thought it was 1957 and people were running in and out, delivering what they had written down on their notepads via public telephones. I don't know. Moreover, many of the internet rumors went beyond the known details of the case. Newsweek's December 6, 1993 edition, for example, reprinted without permission, quote unquote, as the correspondent stated, reported, quote, another account said that to keep them from escaping, both girls were hobbled by their abductors who used veterinary surgical instruments to sever tendons in their legs, close quote. That is the craziest shit. The craziest shit. And I did not find any evidence of that, but that is completely crazy. And I think it was Newsweek. It was a Newsweek article that printed that. Newspapers in Buffalo, Detroit, Washington, New York, and even Britain, together with border radio and television stations, reported details gleaned from sources at Homolka's trial. The syndicated series A Current Affair, which I am, and I'm sure maybe a few of you are old enough to remember, the syndicated series A Current Affair aired 2 programs on the crimes. Canadians bootleg copies of the Buffalo Evening News across the border, prompting orders to the NRP to arrest all of those with more than one copy at the border. Extra copies were confiscated. Copies of other newspapers, including the New York Times, were either turned back at the border or not accepted by distributors in Ontario. Gordon Daum, a retired police officer who defied the publication ban by distributing details from the foreign media, was charged and convicted on 2 counts of contempt of court. Now, they try to do all that they could to keep the public from finding out details here and there. Didn't seem to work too well, it looks like. Even at least one police officer got in on the party. So Jamie Cameron, professor at law of Osgoode Hall, noted that at the time of the Homolka trial, 3 features of the case worried and concerned the public. Little was known about the respective roles Homolka and Bernardo played in their actions and the killing of their victims. By spring 1993, it was clear that the Crown's case against Bernardo depended on Homolka's evidence. In simple terms, to secure a conviction against him, her story had to be believed. By casting her as a victim of his predatory behavior, her responsibility for the crimes that were committed could be diminished and her credibility as a witness preserved. Now, I don't need to read that again. I think we can all figure that out. In order to convict this dude here to our left, regardless of what she did, the female to our right, we need to look away from that and make her look as if she was the victim so we can at least get him. Because if we don't, with the way we ran this so far, we won't get anybody, because we don't have enough evidence, obviously, to get anyone. So we at least need her word. At this point, I would think, and maybe even Bernardo thought, had I not beat that woman with that flashlight, maybe I'm not in this position right now. So we get into the search warrants here that they finally were able to get, or that they had gotten. On February 21st, 1993, police found a tape in which a short segment depicted Bernardo, Homolka, and an unnamed American prostitute having oral sex with an unconscious identified young woman believed at first to have been Kristen French. The unidentified girl would later be called Jane Doe after the discovery of the full tapes in which she was revealed to be a minor. Her identity remains covered by the publication ban. On May 18th, 1993, Homolka was arraigned on 2 counts of manslaughter. Bernardo was charged with 2 counts, each of kidnapping, unlawful confinement, aggravated sexual assault, and first-degree murder, as well as 1 of dismemberment. So he's catching most of the flack here. Coincidentally, that day, Bernardo's lawyer first watched the tapes. Murray decided to hold on to the tapes and use them to impeach Homolka on the stand during Bernardo's trial. So let me read this again for you. Coincidentally, that day, Bernardo's lawyer first watched the tapes. Murray decided to hold on to the tapes and use them to impeach Homolka on the stand during Bernardo's trial. Now, what we didn't have a ton to find about, what we did not have was a ton of articles out there that spoke to this point, which was that while in jail, Bernardo had instructed his lawyer to go into the house and to look for the tapes, told him where they were, and then to hang on to them and do not watch them. Now, do I believe that he found them and never watched them? Who's to say? But that is what we are told. But now you see here that coincidentally, using their word again, that day Bernardo's lawyer first watched those tapes and then decided to hold on to the tapes and use them to impeach Homolka on the stand during Bernardo's trial. Because those tapes were the key. Those tapes showed that Homolka was more involved in this than she had led on with anyone. So neither Murray nor Carolyn McDonald, the other attorney on the defense team, were deeply experienced criminal lawyers, and it was only over time that their ethical dilemma showed itself also to be potentially a criminal matter, for they were withholding evidence. Now, I'm no lawyer. A lot of you are not. We just love true crime. And because we love true crime, one of the first ways we found true crime was through shows like Law and Order. And if you're older than that, homicide and some other things. Who knows? Perry Mason. I don't know. I feel like I'm leaving out one. Matlock, maybe Matlock. But we all know that whether it be the prosecution or the defense team, when they come upon new evidence, they have to share it. Otherwise, it is as written here, a potentially criminal matter, because then you are withholding evidence from the other side. By October of 1993, he and his law partners had studied over 4,000 documents from the Crown. Murray has said he was willing to hand over the tapes to the Crown if they had let him cross-examine Homolka in the anticipated preliminary hearing. The hearing was never held. Now, I don't think that is a real reason not to do what he was supposed to do, but so says he. Murray said the videotapes showed Homolka sexually assaulting 4 female victims, having sex with a female prostitute in Atlantic City, and at another point, drugging an unconscious victim. During the summer of 1994, Murray had become concerned about serious ethical problems that had arisen in connection with the tapes and his continued representation of Bernardo. He consulted his own lawyer, smart man. He consulted his own lawyer, Austin Cooper, who asked the Law Society of Upper Canada's Professional Conduct Committee for advice. Quote, the Law Society directed Murray in writing to seal the tapes in a package and turn them over to the judge presiding at Bernardo's trial. The Law Society further directed him to remove himself as Bernardo's counsel and to tell Bernardo what he had been instructed to do. Close quote. Murray said this in a statement released through Cooper, his own attorney. So Bernardo's attorney has an attorney. Because I think it finally hit him. I don't know, maybe his wife told him over dinner, you stupid motherfucker, you cannot hang on to these. You need to get a lawyer. Someone told him that he needed to get one and he got one. So in a statement, Murray released through Cooper, his attorney, in September 1995. We find these things out, and so does Bernardo. On 12 September 1994, Cooper attended Bernardo's trial. So the lawyer of the lawyer attends Bernardo's trial and advised Justice Patrick Lesage of the Ontario Courts General Division, lawyer John Rosen, who replaced Murray as Bernardo's defense counsel, and the prosecutors about what the Law Society had directed Murray to do. Rosen argued that the tapes should have been turned over to the defense first. Murray handed the tapes along with a detailed summary to Rosen, who kept the tapes for about 2 weeks and then decided to turn them over to the prosecution. It's a lot of hanging on the tapes around here. A lot of not sharing. A lot of people aren't sharing. So Murray handed the tapes over. The revelation that a key piece of evidence had been kept from police for so long created a furor, especially when the public realized that Homolka had been Bernardo's willing accomplice. The tapes were not allowed to be shown to the spectators. Only the audio portion was available to them. Moreover, Bernardo has always claimed that while he raped and tortured Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French, it was Homolka who actually killed them. After the videotapes had been found, rumors spread that Homolka was an active participant of the crimes. The public grew incensed as the full extent of Homolka's role in the case was finally exposed, and the plea agreement now seemed unnecessary. However, as was provided in the plea bargain, Homolka had already disclosed sufficient information to the police, and the Crown found no grounds to break the agreement and reopen the case. No, what happened was you guys all had egg on your face, and you could not allow yourselves to be shown as the idiots that you were. I believe that to be more true than she helped them so much that they couldn't go back and break the agreement and reopen the case. Homolka's plea bargain had been offered before the contents of the videotapes were available for review. As Anne McGilvray, associate professor of law at the University of Manitoba, explained the continuing public antagonism against Homolka, there was widespread belief that she had known where the videotapes were hidden, that she willfully concealed the Jane Doe incidents, and most centrally, that her claims of being under Bernardo's control, a central tenet of the plea bargain, were dubious. Speculation was fed by a publicity ban on the plea bargain, which stood until Bernardo's trial. That Bernardo would be incarcerated for his mortal lifespan seemed a foregone conclusion. Homolka, in the popular view, should have taken her seat beside him in the prisoner's box and seat of ultimate evil. You can raise my hand to that. Homolka promised full disclosure and testimony against Bernardo in return for reduced charges and a joint sentencing recommendation. In so doing, she escaped central blame for the deaths. That is so smart. That is so smart there. Because if they're going to go ahead and joint sentence them, then everything is over. There's no way that anyone should be able to lean on her. There's no way there should be more reports just on her. Everything is done, case closed. Smart deal there. Although the contents of the videotapes will likely have led to a conviction of murder for Homolka, an inquiry into the conduct of the prosecutors who had made the plea bargain found their behavior, quote, professional and responsible, close quote, and, quote, the resolution agreement, close quote, that they had established with Homolka was seen to be, quote, unassailable under the Criminal Code of Canada. Judge Patrick T. Galligan reported to the Attorney General on the matter, indicated that in his opinion, the Crown had no alternative but to negotiate with the accomplice in this case, close quote. As the lesser of two evils, to deal with an accomplice rather than be left in a situation where a violent and dangerous offender cannot be persecuted. So, again, going back to what we spoke about some time back, a few minutes back, I should say. You got both of them, him on the left, her on the right. We need her to get him. Though we kind of believe she did shit too. Can't quite prove it. Had we done our jobs, we would be able to, but we didn't. So this is where we are. So we're gonna believe you, squinting one eye closed, and we're gonna use your testimony to convict him on our left. And as you see here, as the judge put it, in this case, as the lesser of two evils. Though, again, I would love to argue that point. And I wish someone was smart enough in this story early on to figure this out so they could have argued this point. In December 2001, Canadian authorities determined that there was no possible future use of the tapes. The 6 videotapes depicting the torture and rape of Bernardo's and Homolka's victims were destroyed. The disposition of the tapes of Homolka watching and commenting on the tapes remains sealed. Now, after her 1995 testimony against Bernardo, when Homolka returned to Kingston's prison for women, her mother started to suffer annual breakdowns between Thanksgiving and Christmas. The collapses were severe enough that she was hospitalized, sometimes for months at a time. Homolka was moved from Kingston in the summer of 1997 to Joliet Institution, which was a medium security prison in Quebec, a facility called Club Fed by its critics, which here in America, a lot of us have heard that same term used for our own federal prisons, which we often see more white collar criminals go to. But here we have a murderer, a rapist, going to something similar in Canada. Homolka appeared to thrive in a highly structured prison environment. Several psychologists and psychiatrists examined her and agreed that she showed symptoms of spousal abuse, although some believe she simulated with coaching and books. At what point do you people with your medical degrees on the wall ever catch up with the sociopaths and the psychopaths? In 1999, Toronto Star reporter Michelle Shepard came into possession of copies of her application to transfer to Mason Teresa Casgrain, run by the Elizabeth Fry Society, and published a story noting the halfway house's proximity to local schools hours before the Canadian courts issued a publication ban on their information. They love their publication bans. Homolka sued the government after her transfer to a Montreal halfway house was denied. Before her imprisonment, Homolka had been evaluated by numerous psychiatrists, psychologists, and other mental health and court officials. Homolka reported by one, remains something of a diagnostic mystery. Despite her ability to present herself very well, there is a moral vacuity in her which is difficult, if not impossible, to explain. That is so refreshing that one of these geniuses with the degrees again on the wall, the medical degrees on the wall, would say in a very, very long-winded way, I don't know what the fuck is going on here. Because they don't know. They don't know. As Homolka proceeded through the Canadian prison system, there were frequent flashes that illuminated this perception. In Joliet, Homolka had a sexual affair with Linda Verneau, who was serving time for a series of armed robberies, and who reoffended so that she could get sent back to Joliet to be with Homolka. Insane. According to the Montreal Gazette, so that's all according to them, her letters to Verneau, wrote Christy Blatchford in her Globe and Mail column, were, quote, in French and on the same sort of childish puppy dog decorated paper she once wrote to her former husband. The same kind of girlish love note she sent to him, close quote. Her language, Blatchford noted, was equally juvenile. While being evaluated in 2000, Homolka told psychiatrist Robin Menzies that she did not consider the relationship to be homosexual, as Verneau saw herself as a man and planned to undergo a sex operation in due course, the psychiatrist wrote. Psychiatrist Louis Morissette, meanwhile, noted in his report that Homolka was ashamed of the relationship and hid it from her parents and the experts who examined her. The psychiatrist mentions in his report that under the circumstances, the relationship was not abnormal. Yeah, she's in prison, so she's probably trying to attach herself to anyone who can do something for her. Again, it demonstrated Blatchford's observation that what is particularly compelling and telling is how radically different are the faces she presents to each audience. Her former veterinary clinic co-worker and friend, Wendy Lutzen, the Toronto Sun declared, quote, now believes Homolka's actions were those of a psychopath, not of an abuse-controlled woman, close quote. Homolka, Lutzen said, had promised she would explain herself. Yet though the women exchanged a series of letters while Homolka was waiting to testify at Bernardo's trial, and after she had completed her testimony, Homolka never did try to explain to Lutzen, quote, why she did what she did. On January 11, 2008, the Canadian press reported that the letters written by Homolka to Lutzen had been pulled from eBay, where they had reached $1,600 with a week to go. So this chick, the former friend, was trying to sell the letters. What would you do? Would you try to sell the letters? Would you? Would you hang on to them? Would you have just burned them? Could you have Taking that money that you would have earned from letters written by someone who had committed the crimes that she committed? Let me know. I would love to hear it. Let me know. In a letter of apology to her family, she continued to blame Bernardo for all her misdeeds. Quote, he wanted me to get sleeping pills from work, threatened me, and physically and emotionally abused me when I refused. I tried so hard to save her. Now, by her, I'm going to assume she's speaking of her younger sister, which she helped rape and murder. Tim Danson, attorney for the victims' families, has said that she has never apologized to them. And let me mention the complexities and challenges of completing behavioral studies of women who are suspected of having psychopathic traits have been noted in the forensic literature. The various different masks that female psychopathic killers displays at different times often have more to do with the audience and the manipulation of that moment that will benefit the individual wearing the mask than the true nature of the individual wearing the mask. Well, duh. I would probably say that would be for male psychopathics, but, I'm no shrink. Most people I've known who are liars, habitual liars, do tell the lie based off whom they're speaking to, based off what they want that person to believe, based off what wool they can pull over that person's eyes. Where other inmates might apply for parole at the first opportunity, Homolka refrained from doing so. So that's something that was a little bit different about her as well. Because she deemed a risk to reoffend, she was denied statutory release 2/3 of the way through her sentence. Quote unquote. McLean's reported in explaining what had exempted Homolka from the parole restrictions meant to ease an offender's integration into mainstream society. In 2004, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the CBC, noted that the National Parole Board has ruled that Karla Homolka must stay in prison for her full sentence, warning that she remains a risk to commit another violent crime. While the NPB noted that she had made some progress toward rehabilitation, it expressed concern that Homolka had begun corresponding with a convicted murderer, whom she had met when they were both being held in different parts of a prison handling unit in St. Anne-des-Plaines, Quebec. As a result, it decided to keep her in prison. The Toronto Sun reported that Homolka had had sex in prison with a male inmate she now wants to marry, a former cell pal says. So, birds of a feather flock together, man. She's no victim again. And I'm pretty sure that all of you are aware of this. She's a murderess. And a smart one. According to former inmate and Homolka confidant Chantel Mounier, the Sun reported, Homolka and another inmate stripped at a flimsy fence, touched one another sexually, and exchanged underwear. At the same time, Mounier told the Sun Homolka was still in a lesbian relationship with Linda Verno, who had spent $3,000 on her at Victoria's Secret. The NPB reprimanded Homolka. Quote, you have secretly undertaken an emotional relationship with another inmate, and evidence gathered seems to indicate that this relationship rapidly became sexual. Close quote. That's what the panel stated. On December 6, 2001, only 7 days before Homolka dumped Verno, Mounier said she asked Homolka why she continued her lesbian relationship. Why she continued her lesbian relationship while being in love with a man. Mounier recalls Homolka saying, quote, I don't let go right now because I want my clothes and I want my computer. Come on, man. Did you hear? Quote, I don't let go right now because I want my clothes and I want my computer. User, manipulator, murderer, rapist. Another rumor that Homolka intended to settle in Alberta caused an uproar in that province. McLean's weighed in with a series of possible scenarios. The most educated speculation has Homolka staying in Quebec, where language and cultural differences supposedly muted the media coverage of her case, and where she'll be less recognizable. Another rumor suggests she will flee overseas, restarting in a country where her case is unknown, or sneak into the United States using an illegal identity to cross the border and living out her life under a pseudonym. On June 2nd, 2005, the network said the Ontario Crown would ask Quebec judge to impose conditions under Section 810 of Criminal Code on Homolka's release. The French and Mahaffey families want even tighter restrictions on Homolka, including asking that she submit to electronic monitoring or yearly psychological and psychiatric assessments. Excuse me, folks. Sorry you guys had to hear that. It looks like some type of robocall there. My apologies. On June 2nd, 2005, the network said that the Ontario Crown would ask a Quebec judge to impose conditions under Section 810 of Criminal Code on Homolka's release. The French and Mahaffey families want even tighter restrictions on Homolka, including asking that she submit to electronic monitoring or yearly psychological and psychiatric assessment, which I don't think any of that would help. These conditions are not allowed under Section, where are we at here? Not allowed under Section 810 because they cross the line between preventive justice versus punitive measures. But that's why Toronto lawyer Tim Danson, acting on behalf, believes the families want the government to amend the section. Now that's a slippery slope because they're right. Crossing that line between preventive justice versus punitive measures. Anyone seen that movie, The Minority Report, with Tom Cruise? Break it down for you a little bit like that. It's not quite like that, but kind of like that. When you talk about preventive justice, when you're trying to punish someone before the crime is committed. Because if she's already done her time and is going to be, or be it have been released, you cannot continue to punish. So that's where this whole line has to be drawn between preventive justice versus punitive measures. And then trying to decide what is what. A 2-day hearing was held before Judge Jean R. Beaulieu in June of 2005. He ruled that Homolka, upon her release on July 4th, 2005, would still pose a risk to the public at large. As a result, using Section 810.2 of the Criminal Code, certain restrictions were placed on Homolka as a condition of her release. And there's 8 of them. She was to tell police of her home address, work address, and with whom she lives. She was required to notify police as soon as any of the above changed. She was likewise required to notify police of any change to her name. Number 4, if she planned to be away from her home for more than 48 hours, she had to give 72 hours notice. She could not contact Paul Bernardo, the families of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French, or that of the woman known as Jane Doe, or any violent criminals. She was forbidden to be with people under the age of 16 and to consume drugs other than prescription medicine. She was required to continue therapy and counseling. And number 8, she was required to provide police with a DNA sample. There was a penalty of a maximum of 2-year prison term for violating such an order. While this reassured the public that Homolka would find it difficult to offend again, it was felt by the court that it might be detrimental to her as well, because public hostility and her high profile might endanger her upon release. They are really paying a lot of attention to whether or not this woman's going to be in some serious jeopardy. So much so that on June 10th, 2005, Senator Michael Barone declared that the conditions placed on Homolka were totalitarian, or according to an interview with the CTV Newsnet. 2 weeks later, this dude apologized. Kind of like our folks here in the U.S., huh? Homolka then filed a request in the Quebec Superior Court for a wide-ranging injunction aimed at preventing the press from reporting about her following her release. While at Joliet Institution, Homolka received death threats and was transferred to St. Anne's-des-Plaines prison north of Montreal. On July 4th, 2005, Homolka was released from St. Anne's, Des Plaines prison. She granted her first interview to Radio Canada television. Speaking entirely in French, Homolka told interviewer Joyce Napier that she chose Radio Canada because she had found it to be less sensational than the English language media. She said that she had likewise found Quebec to be more accepting of her than Ontario. She affirmed that she would be living within the province, but refused to say where. She said she had paid her debt to society legally, but not emotionally or socially. I would agree with that. Not even close. Not even close to even paying it legally, now that I'm thinking about it. She refused to speak about her alleged relationship with Jean-Paul Gerbet, a convicted murderer serving a life sentence at St. Anne's Des Plaines. During the interview, her solicitor, Sylvie Bordelais, sat beside Homolka. However, she did not speak. Homolka's mother was also present but off screen and was acknowledged by Homolka. Unbelievable. This is the most unbelievable part, the most disturbing, the most upsetting. What the fuck is your mother doing there? You killed her daughter. I am not a mother. I am not. And I've heard mothers say, in situations like this, where they have not wanted to believe that, because if this child took that child, and if I cannot believe this child didn't do it, he or she says that I would lose both. And while my heart can go out to any parent, especially a mother who would feel that way, I'm still blown away that she would be there off screen. The national media reported in July of 2005 that Homolka had relocated to the island of Montreal. On August 21st of 2005, the Courrier du Sud reported that she had been sighted in the South Shore community of Longueuil, across the St. Lawrence River from Montreal. On November 30th, 2005, Quebec Superior Court Judge James Brunton lifted all restrictions imposed on Homolka, saying there was not enough evidence to justify them. On December 6, 2005, the Quebec Court of Appeal upheld Brunton's decision. The Quebec Justice Department decided not to take the cases to the Supreme Court, despite Ontario's urging. TVA reported on June 8, 2006, that Homolka request to have her name changed was rejected. She attempted to change her name legally to Emily Chiara Tremblay. Tremblay being one of the most common surnames in Quebec. I'd probably like changing your names to Johnson or Williams or Smith here in America. Sun Media reported in 2007 that Homolka had given birth to a baby boy. Quebec Children's Aid said that despite Homolka's past, the new mother would not automatically be scrutinized. This goes back again to what we spoke about. I kind of talked about the Minority Report. Several nurses have refused to care for Homolka before she gave birth. Amen. High fives to all of them. On December 14, 2007, City News reported that Homolka had left Canada for the Antilles so that her now 1-year-old could lead a more normal life. On June 21st, 2012, Canadian journalist Paula Todd published a 40-page ebook entitled Finding Karla: How I Tracked Down an Elusive Child Killer and Discovered a Mother of 3, which revealed that Homolka had relocated to Guadeloupe and changed her name to Leanne Bordelais. She is married to her lawyer's brother, Thierry Bordelais, with whom she has 2 sons and 1 daughter. Todd wrote that she visited the Bordelais residence and stayed for about an hour. Todd reported that she spent stretches of time simply watching the 3 Bordelais children play, and concluded that Homolka appeared to be an excellent mother, quote unquote. After the visit, Homolka phoned her lawyer and ceased contact with Todd, stating that no one cares about where she is or what she's doing, quote unquote. And I would disagree with that. I want to know where this bitch is at all times. I want you right in front of me. Put your back against the wall, everybody, whenever she comes in the room. Be very careful. Don't eat any cookies that she brings to the parent-teacher conferences. None of it. I don't even know what to say about the fact she's married to her lawyer's brother, because her lawyer should have the most insight, the most information into who this woman is. A poll of 9,521 voters concluded that 63.27% believe that the public had the right to know Homolka's location. Absolutely. Where is she? Back against the wall. Where is she? Where's my daughters? 18.57% of voters believe that she deserved anonymity. And 18.16% believe that Homolka should be permitted to receive anonymity in about 50 years. Because the videotapes of the crimes that were found had demonstrated that she was a more active participant than she had claimed. As a result, the deal that she had struck with prosecutors was dubbed in the Canadian press the deal with the devil. And I think that is well titled. Hey guys, it's been me, Sidney Smith here, Murderous Podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed this week's episode. I know I enjoyed looking up some of the information here and trying to put it all together a little bit here. And I've enjoyed sharing it with you as well. Don't forget, drop me something at murderouspodcast.com. Let me know how your day's going. Let me know how your week is going, especially if you're someone who needs to just vent. I'm here for it. Also, if you have any thoughts, any ideas of some murderesses that you would like to hear my voice talk about, I'm here for that too. Thank you guys again. I definitely appreciate it. About the story you just heard, I sourced this one from several different outlets, but murderpedia.com kind of pulled it off for me. So thank you guys very much again. And as always, remember, be aware of your surroundings, and we'll see you next week.